First contact, unintended consequences. The sterile white corridors of the Kepler research station hummed with the soft vibration of atmospheric regulators. Zara Novak pressed her palm against the cool transparent wall, gazing out at the alien landscape of Kepler 452b. Rust-colored plains stretched beneath a pale lavender sky, punctuated by crystalline rock formations that glinted like frozen lightning. As the station's lead xenolinguist, Zara had dedicated her entire career to understanding the intricate communication systems of alien civilizations. Her latest mission was her most challenging yet, establishing first contact with the Virexian civilization, a species that had remained deliberately isolated for centuries. Dr. Liam Rodriguez, the mission's chief anthropologist, approached her with a datapad in hand. "The preliminary communication protocols are ready," he said, his voice tight with anticipation. "We've spent months analyzing their broadcast patterns, and we think we've cracked their basic communication matrix." Zara nodded, her dark eyes reflecting a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The Virexians were known for their complex social structures and rigid cultural practices. Intelligence reports suggested they had a communication system that went far beyond verbal or written language, an intricate blend of biological signaling, environmental cues, and what some xenolinguists theorized might be a form of telepathic communication. "Remember," Zara cautioned, "we can't approach this like a typical first contact scenario. Everything we know about the Virexians suggests they have protocols we can't begin to comprehend." The communication array began to pulse with a soft blue light, indicating an incoming transmission. Zara and Liam exchanged a quick glance. This was the moment they had prepared years for, the first direct communication with a civilization that had steadfastly resisted any form of external contact. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a series of complex geometric patterns that shifted and transformed with each passing second. Zara's fingers danced across the translation interface, attempting to decode the intricate message. "It's not just a language," she muttered, more to herself than to Liam. "It's a complete cultural transmission. Every pattern carries multiple layers of meaning." Suddenly, the patterns changed. What had been a delicate, almost mathematical communication transformed into something more aggressive. The geometric shapes became jagged, their colors shifting from cool blues to heated crimsons and oranges. "Something's wrong," Liam said, taking a step back from the display. Before Zara could respond, a piercing sound erupted from the communication array, a noise that seemed to bypass her ears and resonate directly within her mind. It was a sound of challenge, of confrontation, of something deeply personal being violated. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the transmission ended. "What just happened?" Liam asked, rubbing his temples. Zara stared at the now blank display, a growing sense of unease settling in her stomach. "I think," she said slowly, "we may have just committed a significant cultural transgression. But I'm not entirely sure what." Little did Zara know that her seemingly innocent attempt at communication had triggered an ancient and complex set of social protocols among the Virexians, protocols that would soon change her life forever. The rust-colored plains of Kepler 452b seemed to watch silently, holding the secrets of a civilization that was about to dramatically alter Zara Novak's understanding of interstellar diplomacy. The Binding Covenant. 3 standard solar cycles had passed since the fateful transmission. Zara found herself confined to a specially constructed chamber within the Kepler research station, her movements restricted by protocols she couldn't fully comprehend. The station's usual bustling activity had been replaced by an eerie silence, punctuated only by occasional hushed conversations and the persistent hum of monitoring equipment. Commander Fiona Reyes, the mission's lead diplomatic officer, entered the chamber with a holographic display flickering between her hands. Her usual composed demeanor was marred by visible tension. "We've received an official communication from the Virexian High Council," she said, her voice carefully modulated. "And it's complicated." Zara leaned forward, the multiple layers of her communication dampening suit rustling with the movement. "Complicated how?" A holographic projection materialized, revealing Krell, the Virexian High Counselor. Unlike human diplomats, Krell appeared as a shimmering construct of interconnected energy patterns, more quantum algorithm than biological entity. When it spoke, the words seemed to form directly in Zara's mind rather than through any traditional auditory mechanism. The transmission was no mere communication, Krell's thought voice resonated. It was a challenge. A deeply personal and cultural challenge that can only be resolved through a specific ritual of reconciliation. Dr. Rodriguez, standing to the side, whispered to Commander Reyes, "This sounds ominous." Krell continued, the energy patterns shifting from cool blues to heated crimsons. By initiating contact without understanding the Virexian ancestral protocols, you have committed what we consider a grave transgression. In our culture, unsanctioned communication is tantamount to a profound personal violation. Zara felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Her entire career had been dedicated to understanding alien cultures, yet here she was, completely out of her depth. The resolution, Krell explained, requires a binding covenant. You must participate in a ceremonial alignment that demonstrates your commitment to understanding and respecting our cultural boundaries. Commander Reyes stepped forward. And what exactly does this binding covenant entail? The holographic representation of Krell pulsed with what could only be described as a mixture of bureaucratic satisfaction and cultural superiority. You will be assigned a Virexian cultural mediator. This individual will guide you through a series of intricate ritual interactions designed to realign the cosmic and cultural disruption caused by your initial transmission. Zara's mind raced. This was far beyond any first contact protocol she had ever studied. The Virexians weren't just offering a diplomatic solution, they were proposing a complete immersion into their most intimate cultural practices. If you refuse, Krell added, the energy patterns darkening to a deep, threatening crimson, the consequences will extend beyond your individual mission. Your entire diplomatic initiative will be terminated, and future human-alien interactions in this sector will be permanently restricted. The weight of the ultimatum hung in the air. Zara looked at Commander Reyes and Dr. Rodriguez, seeing her own mixture of fear, confusion, and reluctant curiosity reflected in their eyes. "I'll do it," Zara said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty churning inside her. "I'll participate in your binding covenant." As if waiting for those exact words, the holographic projection of Krell began to dissolve. But not before leaving a final, cryptic message that would haunt Zara in the days to come: preparation begins now. The alignment must be complete. Outside the chamber's reinforced windows, the alien landscape of Kepler 452b seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly anticipation. Something fundamental was about to change, not just for Zara, but potentially for the entire trajectory of human-alien relations. The binding covenant had begun. Unexpected connections. The Virexian cultural mediator arrived precisely 72 hours after the binding covenant was announced. Her name was Nexera, a being that defied Zara's every preconception of what an alien could be. Unlike the energy-based projection of Krell, Nexera was hauntingly physical, a lithe figure with skin that seemed to shift between translucent and opaque, embedded with intricate patterns that moved like living circuitry. Zara stood in a specially prepared chamber within the Kepler research station, her communication suit replaced by a minimalist garment that felt like it was alive, responding to her body's subtle temperature changes and emotional states. Nexera circled her, not with predatory intent, but with the calculated precision of a researcher studying a complex specimen. Communication is more than words, Nexera spoke, her voice a melodic blend of harmonic tones that seemed to bypass Zara's ears and resonate directly within her neural pathways. Your initial transmission was a catastrophic violation of our most sacred communicative boundaries. Dr. Rodriguez and Commander Reyes watched from behind a shielded observation window, their faces etched with a mixture of scientific curiosity and diplomatic concern. Nexera extended a hand, or what Zara initially perceived as a hand. Upon closer inspection, it was a complex network of bioluminescent tendrils that seemed to breathe and pulse with an internal rhythm. "Touch is our primary mode of deep communication," she explained. "Your technological approach was tantamount to a violent intrusion." Zara hesitated, then slowly extended her own hand. The moment their skin, if it could be called skin, made contact, her world exploded into a kaleidoscope of sensations. Memories that were not her own flooded her consciousness, vast cosmic migrations, intricate social rituals older than human civilization, and a complex understanding of communication that transcended linear thought. "We are not simply speaking," Nexera explained, her tendrils now fully intertwined with Zara's fingers, "we are sharing collective consciousness." Hours passed, though time seemed meaningless within the chamber. Zara learned that the Virection communication was a living, breathing entity. Each transmission was a delicate dance of cultural context, emotional resonance, and collective memory. Her initial transmission had been like a crude hammer attempting to paint a masterpiece, technically functional, but monumentally inappropriate. "Your species understands communication as a transfer of information," Nexera continued. "We understand it as a living organism. Your message was not just words, it was an invasion, a violation of our most intimate cultural boundaries." The revelation was both terrifying and profound. Zara had dedicated her life to xenolinguistics, believing she understood the nuanced art of cross-cultural communication. Now, she realized she had been operating with the sophistication of a child attempting to understand quantum physics. As the connection deepened, Zara began to comprehend the true depth of her mistake. The Virections weren't just another alien species, they were a civilization that had evolved communication into an art form so complex that human technology could barely perceive its existence. "The binding covenant is not a punishment," Nexera explained, her bioluminescent tendrils now creating complex, shifting patterns around Zara. "It is a process of mutual understanding. You must learn to communicate as we do, not with words or technology, but with the very essence of your being." Outside the chamber, Dr. Rodriguez made a note in his datapad. "This is beyond anything we've ever encountered," he muttered to Commander Reyes. "We're witnessing a complete reimagining of interspecies communication." As the session concluded, Zara was left breathless, her understanding of language, communication, and connection fundamentally transformed. The binding covenant was no longer just a diplomatic protocol, it was a journey of cosmic proportions. Nexera's final words resonated within Zara's mind: "To truly communicate is to become vulnerable." Are you prepared for that journey? The rust-colored planes of Kepler 452b continued their silent vigil, bearing witness to a communication revolution that would forever change humanity's approach to interstellar diplomacy. Diplomatic tensions. The aftermath of Zara's initial communication sessions with Nexera sent shockwaves through the Kepler research station. What had begun as a diplomatic mishap was rapidly evolving into a complex interstellar incident that challenged everything humanity understood about first contact protocols. Admiral Winston Garrett arrived unexpectedly, his weathered face a map of concern and barely contained frustration. He had been dispatched directly from Earth Central Command, bringing with him a contingent of diplomatic specialists and security personnel. The sterile white corridors of the research station now buzzed with an electric tension that spoke of impending conflict. "Ms. Novak," Garrett began, his voice a low growl that seemed to vibrate with contained anger, "you've managed to transform a routine communication attempt into a potential interstellar diplomatic nightmare." Zara stood her ground, her experiences with Nexera having transformed her from a cautious xenolinguist to someone who now understood communication in ways her colleagues could barely comprehend. "Sir, what happened isn't a diplomatic failure. It's an opportunity unlike anything we've ever encountered." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, his datapad filled with complex analysis of the Virection communication patterns. "The level of cultural complexity is unprecedented. Their communication method isn't just a language, it's a living, adaptive system that makes our most advanced translation algorithms look like children's toys." Nexera observed the human interactions from a corner of the chamber, her bioluminescent patterns shifting in what could only be interpreted as amusement. The Virection had become more than just a cultural mediator, she was now a bridge between two fundamentally different ways of understanding existence. Admiral Garrett slammed his hand on a nearby console. We cannot allow a single communication error to compromise our entire interstellar diplomatic strategy. The United Earth Confederation expects results, not mystical explanations about alien communication. But Zara had changed. The deep connection she had experienced with Nexera had fundamentally altered her perception. Our traditional approach to first contact is fundamentally flawed, she argued. We've been treating alien civilizations as if they were just different versions of human communication, when in reality, they can be as different from us as quantum mechanics is from elementary arithmetic. The station's communication array suddenly came alive with a series of complex transmissions. Krell, the Virection High Counselor, materialized as a shimmering energy construct. The binding covenant progresses, the entity announced, its voice a complex symphony of thought and emotion. But challenges remain. What none of the humans realized was that this was more than a diplomatic negotiation. The Virections were conducting an intricate test, not just of Zara's capabilities, but of humanity's potential for true interstellar understanding. Commander Fiona Reyes studied the developing situation with a strategic eye. "We're walking a razor's edge," she murmured to Dr. Rodriguez. One wrong move could close off human-Virection relations for generations. Nexera approached Zara, her tendrils creating intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with meaning. "Your species stands at a crossroads," she communicated directly into Zara's mind. "Will you continue to see communication as a tool, or will you understand it as a living, breathing entity?" The chamber fell silent, the weight of potentially billions of years of evolutionary communication hanging in the balance. Admiral Garrett, Dr. Rodriguez, Commander Reyes, they all watched as Zara became something more than just a diplomat. She was becoming a translator of cosmic understanding. Outside the station's reinforced windows, the alien landscape of Kepler 452b continued its timeless vigil. Rust-colored plains stretched beneath a lavender sky, bearing silent witness to a moment that could reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The binding covenant was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning to reveal its true complexity. Revelations and choices. The chamber where Zara had been conducting her extraordinary communication sessions with Nexera had transformed. What was once a sterile research environment now pulsed with an organic, almost living quality. Bioluminescent patterns crawled across the walls, creating intricate maps of communication that seemed to breathe and shift with each passing moment. Dr. Helena Winters, a xenopsychologist brought in as a last resort specialist, watched in fascination. Her decades of academic research had never prepared her for what was unfolding before her eyes. Zara Novak was no longer just a xenolinguist, she was becoming something entirely new. "The human brain is showing unprecedented neural plasticity," Helena muttered into her recording device. "Synaptic connections are forming in patterns that defy our current understanding of cognitive development." Nexera moved closer to Zara, their connection now so profound that verbal communication seemed almost primitive. "You are beginning to understand," the Virection communicated, her bioluminescent tendrils creating complex geometric patterns that danced between physical and conceptual space. The true nature of the binding covenant was slowly revealing itself. It was not a punishment, nor was it simply a diplomatic protocol. It was a test, a profound examination of a species' capacity for true interstellar understanding. Admiral Garrett watched from the observation room, his previous anger replaced by a growing sense of uncertainty. The United Earth Confederation had sent him to contain a potential diplomatic disaster, but he was witnessing something far more significant. The transmission wasn't just a mistake, Zara suddenly spoke, her voice carrying a resonance that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her physical self. It was an invitation. Nexara's patterns intensified. Every communication is a choice. Every interaction is a potential bridge or barrier. The station's advanced quantum communication array began to pulse, responding to the complex energy patterns generated by Zara and Nexara's connection. Dar. Rodriguez watched in awe as data streams transformed from linear sequences into three-dimensional, living information structures. The Virections don't just communicate, Zara continued, her eyes now reflecting impossible colors that seem to exist between perception and imagination, they become the communication. Commander Reyes leaned closer to the observation window. "What's happening to her?" she whispered to Admiral Garrett. "I'm not sure," he responded, a rare admission of vulnerability in his typically controlled demeanor. "But I think we're witnessing the next stage of human evolution." The revelations were mounting. The initial transmission that had been viewed as a catastrophic error was actually a complex cosmic invitation, a test of humanity's potential to transcend its current understanding of communication, consciousness, and connection. Nexara's final communication resonated through the chamber: "You must choose. Transformation or isolation. Connection or stagnation." Zara stood at a crossroads. Her choice would not just affect her mission or her species. It would potentially reshape the fundamental understanding of interstellar communication. The bioluminescent patterns reached a crescendo, creating a living mandala of possibility. Outside, the alien landscape of Kepler 452b seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a decision that would echo across the cosmos. In that moment, Zara understood that the binding covenant was never about punishment. It was about potential. And the potential was infinite. Bridging worlds. The moment of final transformation arrived not with a thunderous revelation, but with a subtle shift that resonated across the entire Kepler research station. Zara Novak stood at the epicenter of a phenomenon that would redefine humanity's understanding of interstellar communication, her very existence now a bridge between two profoundly different ways of perceiving reality. Admiral Winston Garrett watched in a state of conflicted awe. The diplomatic mission he had come to control had become something far beyond any official protocol or expected outcome. Dar. Helena Winters documented every microscopic change, her scientific curiosity battling with a growing sense of wonder. "The choice is made," Nexara communicated, her bioluminescent patterns forming a complex tapestry of light and meaning that seemed to exist simultaneously within and beyond physical space. Zara's transformation was not a complete departure from her humanity, but an expansion of it. Her consciousness now existed in a state of quantum fluidity, capable of understanding communication as a living, breathing entity that transcended language, technology, and even the concept of individual identity. Commander Fiona Reyes approached the observation window, her hand pressed against the reinforced glass. "What have we become?" she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. The Virection High Counselor, Krell, materialized as a shimmering construct of pure energy. "The binding covenant is complete," the entity announced, its communication a symphony of thought and emotion that resonated through the station's very infrastructure. Dr. Rodriguez's advanced translation algorithms, once considered the pinnacle of interspecies communication technology, now seemed like primitive tools. The communication happening before them was beyond translation, it was pure understanding. "We've been looking at communication all wrong," Zara's voice emerged, a blend of human speech and something far more complex. "It's not about sending or receiving messages. It's about becoming the message." The station's quantum communication array began to pulse with a rhythm that matched the bioluminescent patterns surrounding Zara. Impossible data streams flowed, revealing layers of cosmic understanding that human science had never even conceived. Nexara's final communication was both a conclusion and a beginning: "Your species has taken its first true step beyond isolation. The universe is not a place to be conquered or understood. It is a living conversation waiting to be joined." As the transformation reached its climax, the barriers between the Virection civilization and humanity began to dissolve. It was not a conquest, not a diplomatic victory, but a profound meeting of consciousness. The rust-colored plains of Kepler 452b seemed to shimmer, bearing witness to a moment of cosmic significance. Humanity had just learned that communication was not a tool, but a living, breathing entity, a bridge between worlds, between species, between entire ways of existing. Admiral Garrett, a man who had built his entire career on traditional diplomatic strategies, found himself unable to speak. The mission had succeeded beyond any possible expectation. They had not just made first contact. They had redefined the very concept of contact itself. As the station systems hummed with newfound energy, one thing became crystal clear: this was not an ending, but the most extraordinary of beginnings. The cosmic conversation had just started.